Hello everyone, welcome back. So today I wanted to talk about why I am a solitary witch. So over the years I've used a lot of different labels, and honestly it's probably the past couple years I've really settled into this title. So when I first began, I always loved the idea of having a coven of some sorts. I love the idea of having a group of witches coming together, and at the time would have been Wiccans, coming together to celebrate and learn and discuss and do this whole journey with other people. And even just having a mentor would have been nice. Somebody that you could go to and ask questions, but that wasn't always the case. Occasionally you could ask somebody online like a quick question, you might get an answer, but it was never going to be an ongoing discussion of different things that came up. It always just felt like I was kind of bothering people, so I didn't. And honestly, that did come down to one creator. I don't even remember their channel. I'm sure it's defunct by now. But it was somebody probably in their 40s or 50s putting themselves out there as a teacher of sorts. And I had a lot of logistical questions about things. Because in my mind, coming from an atheist agnostic standpoint, having a belief in something was really hard for me to like kind of wrap my mind around. And so I had a few questions. Mostly I wanted to know, like, when you say that you're experiencing like these things, are you like literally having like a person there 3D, or is it more of like a feeling that you're just like feeling like they're there? And nobody would answer that question really and explain it at all. And I had asked one person and she wanted to know a little bit more of the background of what was going on and like where I was coming from it. And so I told her, and once she found out I was not 18, end of conversation, you're just a child, and basically not to talk to you until you're an adult and you're old enough to understand the world. Now, I struggled with that for many years because I thought that was ridiculous that just because I was a teenager, my parents had no problem with me doing it. They just weren't really, like, doing much of it with me. My dad definitely didn't, and my mom was just kind of making sure I didn't get into too much mischief. She would go to occasional stuff, but she's still more on the agnostic. Not sure exactly what it is, but it's like, yours isn't terrible, so it's fine. But none of these people ever asked if it was like, hey, can I like talk to your parents first and like get approval? Because they would have. But no, instead it was just, you're a teenager, I'm not going to talk to you, end of story. And that put a pretty big chip on my shoulder for a long time about these so-called mentors and like people as like leaders and teachers in the community, because if they can't talk to you, even if it was like on a public platform, like it'd be fine if we had to discuss it in the comments, that's fine, I don't care. But like, you could never get anywhere with them. The only people that would really respond, honestly, I got one response from Charming Pixie Flora when I had follow-up questions. I never got an answer. And I got an answer from Tiptoe Chick. She did answer my follow-up questions, which was nice. But then I felt like she's gonna be like these other people, so I didn't want to like push that boundary too often. But for the most part, like, there are so many that I had gone through that it was like, wow, this really sucks. So often I would just gravitate to the younger people on YouTube and see if I could find out what I could from there. But it kind of left me a little miffed about these so-called teachers and the mentors and whatnots in the community, but I still honestly had this drive of like, I wanted to have a witchy community. And then began my journey of trying to find covens, and honestly, a lot of them are not my speed. There is a lot of, we're better than everyone else attitude, and I don't like that. And that it just has this better than thou vibe, even though in witchcraft you'd think it wouldn't be a big deal. Everyone knows there's so many different traditions that like it's fine, people just do whatever, and as long as you're not like breaking laws and hurting people, like it's fine. If you want to call different pantheons at a time, or you want to have the elements in different order and whatever, like it's fine. But honestly, a lot of them are like, our way is the only way, and it's like, that's reminiscent of other things in this neighborhood, so nope. Because we're a very religious state, so if I wanted to be told exactly what to believe, I would go to the other ones that have a lot more going on in their community. Because like, the LDS Church, as problematic as it is, they are really big on community. So like, if I wanted to like have somebody tell me what to do, I would go there. A lot of these groups would also talk down about other groups in the area, which is always a red flag. You don't have to agree with somebody and like what they do, because like maybe it doesn't work for you. But if you're constantly having this like, vibes towards other groups in the area, that's a red flag. And I didn't like it. And I knew it was a red flag back then, so I just kind of inched away very quickly. And then of course there was a few other things that would pop up. I had one group in particular that was kind of my final straw of like trying to have like an in-person group that was already established. To give some like context, I'm mildly allergic to cats. For the most part, I'm fine. Usually if I have cats around me all the time, I just sneeze a lot, but that's about as far as it goes. This one house had 12 indoor cats. And it was also a bit of a hoarder house. And so there was piles in, like my house has piles and piles and piles, but it's clean underneath. Like when the litter box is, it looks like it literally exploded like 4 feet up the wall. And they have just gotten into the habit now of when they see a cat using the middle of the living room floor for their litter box, they just kind of clean it up and you're just like, oh my, like, nope. By the end of the ritual there, I felt like I was getting to the point where I was gonna maybe need to go like run by an urgent care and make sure I don't need an EpiPen. Like my vision was very blurred, my eyes were swelling, my nose was like a faucet, I was coughing and sneezing constantly because I don't know the last time that house was like deep cleaned, and like it was just so much fur, and I don't want to know what else in there. And it's one of those, like, if you're on TikTok, that guy that sings the "You Can't Eat at Everybody's House" song, that was that house majorly. And so I just was like so that was one aspect of it. But the other side of that particular group that I didn't like is that for a Beltane ritual, which I've always said, I judge groups based off of their Beltane rituals. Because as somebody who still claims the title of ace, it is awkward as fuck when they do stuff with a minor there. And it's public ritual. And you're like, my dude, huh. I don't love the Great Rite to be a public thing. And not like the PC version where it's like, here's a cup and here's a blade. No. Which also, I don't really love anyways, because it really excludes a lot of people. Not everyone does that, even if you're in a straight couple, there's different methods in that field. And so, it's just one of those things. Being in the ace spectrum and just trying to be more aware of other groups of people, it's like, eh. But like, as a minor, seeing them like, clothes were still on, but like, it's uncomfy, to say the least. Was just kind of like my final straw of like, so I left that group and kind of vowed that I was like, you know what, like never again, ever, for a group in person. Yeah, no, not an established one, that's for sure. So then I started to try and make my own for a very long time. I had hopes with a few people here and there, tried to start my own coven, and it just never worked. People would get pissed that you had to meet up so often. And it's like, well, yeah, you meet up 2 to 3 times a month. So, yeah, it's often. The church up the streets, every street, I swear, they meet multiple times a week. The LDS church, they get together pretty often. They have events all the time. So they usually are meeting a couple times a week. Like, at least from my experience with them, especially like growing up with their kids and stuff, they would have them there multiple times a week. So a couple times a month didn't feel like that big of a deal. And we offered to do it at like, you know, trade this locations and stuff. It was easier to do it at my house where I have all of the tools and supplies that we needed, but whatever, we can haul it. And it only lasted for a little bit, and then I finally got fed up with like this attitude of like, well, and the other part of it too is that they didn't take it as like seriously. It was kind of more of like a fun, like, ooh, we're doing stuff vibe. And it just was like, eh. And the person that I was trying to teach, I've had that a couple of times where people approach me and be like, can you like teach me? And I'm like, sure, not a big deal at all. And then I try to, and then within like a month, they're done with it. And I'm like, wow. So full circle, maybe that's what the people that I very first were trying to talk to thought was gonna happen. Here I am 13 years later. But at that point I had kind of given up on things, and so I just was fine being on my own. I was like bitter about it, but was like whatever. And then over the past few years, like the past maybe 8 years or so, it's been on and off of like trying to join different big communities. They're just not located here, but they do like online trainings. So I looked at the one from Glastonbury because I liked the idea of it, but then that group is like really problematic when you start looking into some of their teachings and like the stuff that they're sharing, specifically like the creator, Kathy Jones. She's kind of problematic, and honestly I would never go back because of some stuff that she said and shared and like the misinformation she's promoted. They're really big into, like, if you get into the goddess movement and you're a woman, just be aware that they're very anti, a lot of them, not all, but a lot, are very anti like medications, and your body knows how to function, which doesn't at all apply at all when you have chronic problems. Your body doesn't always know what to do. There's a reason our ancestors would die a lot, and modern medicine exists for a reason, and we shouldn't just throw that aside and be like, nah, your body knows what to do, because it doesn't. So like stuff like that, like she would constantly promote that like if you take any kind of birth control, it's going to give you cancer and it's toxic and it's going to inhibit your magic and all sorts of stuff. And it's like people use it for not just to not get pregnant, like we use it to treat things. There are various conditions in which medications like a birth control actually help. So problematic, to say the least. Let alone it feels kind of like men aren't always welcome in that community. It's a weird line, but whatever. And so then I also thought about doing like the temple series through Pensac, and honestly I can't really say how well that would have gone or not, but I just opted to finally just do it on my own instead of waiting to try and do it, because I knew I needed a little bit more freedom and I didn't want to be stuck to a specific schedule that had no flexibility for life to happen. And so I just kind of gave up on it. And then eventually I found a system that works for me, and that system's solitary. Because being solitary and just owning it, I'm very content now. Like, it's so much easier for me to just be able to do ritual when I feel like it. If I want to celebrate the full moon this way versus that way the next month, I can. I change it up all the time. I'm slowly getting a system in place now. Just, I feel like it's just come with the many years of study that I've done, that I'm finally settling into a routine that kind of is working. But I mean, it's always probably gonna change. And like the most I'll do is occasionally I'll do some rituals with other people, but even then, like, I've just learned that I'd rather do things with a very intimate group of people. And so over time, I've just gotten to this point where it's like, I'll occasionally do stuff with like my mom, who again, still supportive, and is like, oh, I'll tag along for the journey, and my husband. And so between that, like, even then, they don't do it all the time like I do. And so I've just kind of accepted being solitary, and there's a lot more freedom in being a solitary witch. Like now, if I wanted to, which I'm debating, is like writing my own material for like a solitary witch to go do themselves kind of a thing, because like a lot of the training kind of ends up leading towards covens because a lot of the authors are in a coven. And so even though they write for like the average reader, eventually it kind of does be like, well, we need to have a group of people, you know, you can do this stuff and whatever. And so I don't know, I've just kind of accepted that being solitary isn't the end of the world. It's not the worst thing, and it actually gives you a lot more freedom, because really my practice has changed a lot over time, and especially more recently I'm just kind of accepting that it's like we're just gonna roll with whatever the winds tell me to go to, because like I just don't really have a specific thing in mind of like it has to be this way anymore. And that freedom really only comes when you're solitary and you don't have a group telling you what to believe or what to practice, or you've even set it up yourself and then realize that you want to change stuff. So anyways, those are my thoughts on becoming a solitary witch and just kind of my journey with it. I would love to hear yours, whatever title you use, how you got there. Let me know in the comments down below or as a video response. Thank you to my patrons. I'll have their names here on the screen if you would like to support me and get access to exclusive content. It is patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like and subscribe. I post every single day. And until tomorrow, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.